Today's video is brought to you by StoryboardThat.com. Please visit teachercast.net/storyboardthat for a limited time offer. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast podcast, your show for all things educational technology. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today. With me is my co-host today from the Tech Educator podcast, Mr. Sam Patterson. Sam, how are you today?
I'm great, Jeff. Enjoying this spring weather out here in beautiful California.
There's, of course, some great things happening in the world of ed tech, and we wanted to start off the show today by sharing some great announcements. First of all, over on our website, teachercast.net, there are some new additions to the website. Sam, why don't you talk to us a little bit about some of these great additions that we're seeing here?
You bet. Well, what we can see right there at the top are 3 posts that are from My Paperless Classroom, because My Paperless Classroom has moved to TeacherCast. So now mypaperlessclassroom.com delivers you to my blog site inside of TeacherCast. And this allows My Paperless Classroom to benefit from the larger scale of TeacherCast and allows TeacherCast to really benefit from the unique perspective on elementary programming and pedagogy that My Paperless Classroom delivers.
You know, there's a lot of things here happening over at TeacherCast. Of course, we have, like you said, we are including your amazing pedagogy blogs from My Paperless Classroom. We also have all of the shows that we have live here from the Tech Educator podcast that you can check out on teachercast.tv on Sunday nights. Of course, we have our brand new channel, educationalpodcasting.today, where we're going to continue to help you learn how to craft and make your own podcast and WordPress website. And of course, this show is going to be archived over at teachercast.net/TCP for TeacherCast podcast. This is episode number 120. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. There's, of course, several ways that you can reach out and be a part of our show here each and every week. We love it when you follow us on TeacherCast, at TeacherCast on Twitter. Leave us a voicemail over at teachercast.net/voicemail and email us over at teachercast.net/feedback. And of course, all of our articles can be archived, audio and visual, over at teachercast.net/iTunes and teachercast.net/YouTube. And I got to tell you, Sam, there's a lot of people out there right now that have left us voice messages asking us about different topics for shows because they're looking for ways to help out their kids in a new way. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Tell us a little bit about some of the things we've got coming up in today's show.
In today's show, we're going to be talking about designing learning experiences on the iPad. And specifically, I'm going to be talking about how I'm using Scratch Junior in kindergarten and first grade to develop literacy skills. And there's a good portion of math thrown in there too. So we see the opportunity to use programming not just as a thing to learn, but as a way to study other topics in school.
Now, I'm looking at the iPads, and of course, you know, I'm an Apple guy through and through, but I'm also a Google guy. And my question to you when it comes to coding, is the iPad the right tool for my classroom still?
It depends on your kids, right? If you're working with students, say K2, K3, I think the iPad or some other touchscreen device is a great match. If you've got kids who are more keyboard competent and keyboard friendly, you can do programming on a Chromebook, you can do programming on a full iPad. It just depends on, you know, what it is you want to do. We find that especially with our K3 students, the iPad is a great match because it allows them to use the camera to create text. It allows them to use voice recognition to enter in their own text. They can really do a lot with it without being slowed down by the fact that they type so poorly because their hands are tiny.
And why would a school district go for iPads these days in addition to or opposed to going for Chromebooks?
Well, I think that the touch screen is a big deal. Chromebooks are pretty popular in the middle grades once we start doing a lot of document creation in 4th, 5th, 6th grade. then we can begin to say, well, they don't really need to be creative, or they don't really need to be expressive. We can just, no, I'm kidding. You can do a lot of creative and expressive things on a Chromebook. But the iPad works very well for my younger students who really can make a lot of use out of the camera and take a picture of what they're learning and do something else with it, or be able to manipulate things on the screen by moving them around. It's a lot quicker for them than having to translate what they're doing into written language.
Now, today we're going to be talking a lot about coding, which is something that we've talked a little bit about on the Tech Educator podcast. I know we've got some great episodes over there on techeducatorpodcast.com, but specifically today we're going to be talking about a great app called Scratch Junior. Tell us a little bit about this app.
You bet. Scratch Junior is the version of Scratch that was designed for the pre-reading set. Now, Scratch, if you're not familiar with it, was designed by Mitch Resnick at MIT, and it's a visual programming language that uses block-based codes to carry the syntax. So instead of typing line 10, print, quote, about me, whatever, you would have a block that would say, and then it would say, you know, hello world. And then you could click into that block and change what it says. This visual interface has made coding and programming accessible to more students and is used even in entry-level computer science classes at universities now. The team who developed Scratch had long been asked to develop something that was appropriate for even younger kids, and they came up with this app that is available on Android as well as iPad called Scratch Junior, where students can do some pretty sophisticated programming without actually using any text whatsoever.
Now, I got to tell you, as a person who's new to all of this, this concept of coding is still foreign to me, and it's still a little intimidated. You know, are there courses out there that you would suggest? Are there websites that you can go to? What are the ways to get into this kind of subject without being completely overdrawn? I mean, I've seen a lot of people come at coding in more foreign language than coding actually is for me. How do I get involved with this stuff? Because, I mean, I am interested. You know, I know we talked about this a little off camera. I'm starting a new position next year. I want to be able to help kids learn how to do this stuff. But even I'm really, really nervous about digging into it. Where would you suggest I look?
Well, one of the best places to look is just on YouTube and on Twitter, and look for teachers who are using these things. My Paperless Classroom is a great source for information. My YouTube channel is a great source for information. Then there are a lot of other teachers like Wes Fryer. His work with Hopscotch really guided me a lot, who are using these open studio coding apps to create great learning experiences. You know, but really the way to start is just to download, in this case, download Scratch Junior and do something with it. You know, make the cat dance and see what you can do. And look at the work that other people have done, because really what programming is giving a set of directions to make something happen. And what you'll see when we get into Scratch Junior is the commands aren't incredibly complex, but you do have to give them in the right order. So what I want you to think about, Jeff, is the fact that I've got this student who can't read, but what they're doing in order to create the motion they want is they're taking a bunch of symbols and they're stacking them from left to right in a syntax that creates an outcome. So in a lot of ways, they're doing the same work cognitively that they have to do to create sentences. They're building that relationship between signal and signified, and they're building an understanding of syntax that I believe will also transfer to their work when they start reading.
So talk to us a little bit about Scratch Junior. Let me bring up the website here. And this is over at scratchjunior.org. And I see kids as young as, you know, first grade, second grade. I see this app. It's very, very colorful. It's got some neat cartoon characters. How do I get students involved in this, Sam? What do you use in your school?
The way that I get students involved is I put it in their hands and I say, okay, today what we're doing is we're making the cat dance. And we do some very simple coding. I teach them, you know, 1 or 2 tools per session, and we come to it multiple sessions over the year. We do different activities at different grade levels. Kindergarten, we do one set of activities. First grade, we do other activities. Second grade, we do even more complex activities.
And is an app like this something where somebody would save their work to, or is this literally, and I don't mean this lightly, but playing with the app? So, you know, you're doing a task for 45 minutes and then the next class comes in, or is this something where if I don't get the cat to dance the way that I want to, I can come back next week when I have class again?
Right. You can save your work locally on this, but you can also export your files. And that's incredibly useful as a teacher, because when I'm designing what we're going to do in class, when I'm building the lesson, I can literally build a partial program that I export to their iPads. That's then their activity environment for the day.
Can you show us how this works?
You betcha. And here's Scratch Junior. You open it up and you click on the home button and you get to your old projects, or you can click the plus sign to start a new project. And what I'm going to first do is I'm going to open up this project down here that I call Literacies 2. And in this project, what you're seeing is you've got this section over here where my characters are. These are the things that I can program to do different things. And then in the center part is my stage. And what I asked the students to do, this was with the kindergarten students this week, they had to program the letters in this word to get to their location. So I want this O to migrate down to that middle slot. So I'm going to tell it that when the green flag is clicked, we're going to move over, and I'm not sure how many spots. So I'm going to turn on, there's a grid here that I can turn on. And I can see that I need to move over 6 spaces. And it looks like I probably need to move down 4. And then I can, whoops.
And so I know there's people who are not watching this demo that might be listening to this in their car.
Right.
I see that you've typed in Y, O, and U as characters, and you wrote that out yourself?
Yes. What I did to set up this is I clicked the plus sign, and it allows you to actually draw your own characters, which can be a really powerful way for students to make a coding lesson about anything. But in this case, you can see that my menu of characters includes a whole lot of letters that I've written myself.
But again, you're walking into a class with 30 iPads. Do you have to write YOU on all 30, or how does this work?
I set the experience up on my iPad, and then I use AirDrop to transfer it to all of the other iPads. So before I go into class, I do have the cart's worth of iPads out on a table, and I'm clicking accept AirDrop file on each of them. And that's the same time that I actually activate guided access. And what guided access does, it allows me to define the parts of the screen that the students can't touch. So in Scratch Junior, what I'm asking them to do is program the letters Y, O, and U to be in order on the screen. I have to use guided access to turn off that part of the screen, because otherwise my kindergarten students will just drag them into place. And they'll say, Sam, I figured something great out. You don't have to program them into place. You can just move them with your finger. And I'll say, wow, that's great. Here, let me turn on guided access. Now do it again. So it does take a little bit of setup.
And what about the time in between classes? I mean, if you've got 3 sessions of kids, you now have to reset this times 30 3 times a day?
Yeah, you would have to relaunch it, but you could. What I did when I had 2 classes back to back was I actually just downloaded the file twice, and I used one of them the first time and I used the other one the second time. So it was fresh without me having to figure out how to like reset the file.
Got it.
So if I was doing it 3 times, I just load 3 of them in there.
Oh, okay. So here you have your O, and you want to get that into the middle. So we went to the right 6 blocks, and we went down 6 blocks. Now, what happens if they say, but Sam, I can do it by going to the right 7 blocks?
Well, you know, what I encourage them to do is, so we put in that code, right 6 and down 4, and we click the green flag, and we watch the Y and the O march into place. And the O actually hit the line perfectly, so that's great. And then I hit this blue reset button that's kind of an arrow going back to an X, and that moves the letters back into their original position. And then I would go on to code the U to move into place. and I'm not hung up about them getting it in exactly the right place on that line. What I want to see in my kindergartners is that they get the letters in the right order and that the program puts them all there at the same time. So they've actually built a sequence. Some students who are very challenged to sequence will put the little starter green flag block, but then they'll only put one directional command and they'll press the button once and it'll move and they'll put another directional command in. So they're not actually building a sequence. They're saying one command, then we're going to give it another command, you're going to have it execute once. And with those students, the challenge is getting them to think in a full sequence and plan out all of the steps. So with this U, we have to get them to count over the number of squares, which in this case is something like 8, and count down the number of squares, which in this case I think is 2. So if we program that to do 8 and the other one to go down 2, and then we hit the green flag, we can see the Y move into place, the O moves into place, and the U did not move into place enough at all. In fact, I need to change my code and make that move a lot more. I think it's actually moving 12 instead of 8. So I'm going to press my green flag again after I've tested it, and indeed it goes into the right location. But we spend a lot of time talking about things like designing problems and perseverance and problem solving, and programming like this allows students to do it, and they like this app. They have fun with this app. When they finish the challenges I set out for them, I give them some open studio time in this, and they bring in crazy backgrounds, and there's pictures that you can create, and there's all kinds of really fun ways for the students to interact with this app. So I try to structure the class time so there's a focused goal, and then when they achieve that goal, they get to have the reward of creating whatever they would like in this very versatile app.
So we're trying to figure out here ways to use this in classroom. And my question comes to you is, what do we do at the end of this? Okay, the goal is to get the letters to go in the right spot. But after we do that, what is the end game? Do you come back next week and say, all right, we have a bigger letter, or we have more complex? Once we get the cat to dance, as you say, what can a student do ultimately? Like at the end of your curriculum or at the end of this unit, are you then trying to get them to code JavaScript? Like what are we trying to do with these kids?
Well, what I think, what we try to do with these kids, especially at the elementary level, is we're getting them to do something with programming. So this week it might be we're taking a word jumble and we're spelling out words we know with programming. Next week it might be, okay, you've been learning about the rainforest. I want you to build a presentation that teaches something about the rainforest and shows different animals at different layers in the rainforest. Or the second graders might build a dialogue about bumblebees and how they collect honey based on what they've learned in class. So there isn't, like the jump to JavaScript, that might happen at some point. And we've seen that in regular Scratch. There's a point where students say, wow, what I'm trying to do is so intense that it's really stressing out this visual script. Is there a way I could program this better? But ultimately, what we're doing with these is we're just having the students create and build something. At the end of it, they can share it either by taking a screenshot or sharing the file directly with their teacher. But there isn't a whole lot more than that. In a lot of ways, this isn't about creating a product. It's about engaging in a process of expression. So the coding platform allows you to express your ideas and understanding, much like you might do through creating a movie or writing a story.
We're looking here at the Scratch Junior website, and it does seem like there's a lot of different activities that they set up. If you are one of those types of teachers like myself that is a little intimidated about this and might not have all the creative ideas, when you're working with teachers as in a coaching position, where do you suggest they start?
Well, we usually start with pretty simple stuff like a loop. So in the program that I've got here, I could, look at some real basic just programming fundamentals. So I've got this cat, and I want the cat to move across the screen, and I want him to kind of pace back and forth. So I can take this loop and come in, and that's an orange loops bracket. And inside of that bracket, I can place some movement blocks. In this case, I'm going to place a right 4 and a left 3 movement block. And I'm going to repeat this 4 times. But what I'm going to do that's really tricky is at the end of it, I'm going to say just keep doing it. So now it's kind of actually on an endless loop where the cat will slowly work his way across the screen because he's pacing back and forth, but he's going further in one direction than he is in the other.
So not only does the cat jump, but the camel moves as well.
Right. Apparently the camel has some code on him. What's the camel's code? The camel's code, is when somebody bumps into him, that's what this says. He actually gets smaller, moves a little bit, jumps, waits, and then goes back to his original position, but switches the background to the next background.
And what is the code to get that guy in the background above the city walls?
Well, this is actually one of the most fun things about this platform is that when we go to create a new background, we can bring things in through the camera. So I can say, and the students figure this out very quickly, that I want a suburban background. But if I click on the camera lens right there, and then I click on any part of this picture, so I click on the blue sky in the background, it will open up the camera on that blue sky in the background and allow me to place what was in the camera into the sky. And then you can have a scary monster in the sky in your town. What the students also figured out is you can do the same thing with the cat, where you just click on the camera. And I have students where if I'm not careful, they will take every color on whatever character they're doing and replace it with their face, which looks really strange.
But I think the neat part here, Sam, is that it is bringing out creativity. If the cat walks to the left and that's the objective, you can then make the kids do something a lot more creative with this. And
well, exactly. And it makes it as accessible as whatever's on the desktop. I want to show you something I did at a training last week. I was at the training and I asked them, hey, could I see whatever's on your desk there? It was a grant application. I took a picture of it. I brought it in as a background. Now suddenly, whatever we're coding here, it can be about this grant application. I could make the cat walk around and explain the grant application, right?
And you can put audio to that too?
You can put audio to that. You just click on this and there's a little microphone tab and you click on it and it starts recording. And what's great is I never teach the students how to do that, but they always find it. So you'll see this kind of murmur go around the room as they discover the audio recording. And
you can have that set on a specific action, or does that always start from the first action?
No. For example, you could say something like, when I click on the character, I want him to say this thing. Or you could even set up, there's a protocol for messages here, where you could say that the cat is going to go right 3 spaces, then he's going to jump 4, and then it's going to send the orange message. And when he sends the orange message, that will trigger the audio file to say, welcome to the school club grant request, or whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of ways that you can set up those conditional settings and set up those interactions. So it ends up being a fairly rich environment because you can basically build games and presentations inside of Scratch Junior.
Now, Sam, I'm looking at all the great stuff that you're showing there, and I'm reminded of a show on the Tech Educator podcast we recently did with our good friend John Carippo, and he was talking to us about app smashing. I would assume that if you can create something there where your cat runs around and you can put audio to it, and you can put a creative visual to it, you can probably export that to your camera roll and say, import that into iMovie or import that even into your desktop application and do much more to it.
It would be great if you could at this point, but you cannot.
Ooh.
What you could do, what you could do is, no, I don't even think you can actually import from camera roll. You can import from the camera itself, but I don't think you can import from the camera roll.
But you can't export what you're doing as a movie?
No, because it's a program. What I have done is I have screencast that program on a device.
How'd you do that?
Well, you use Reflector app or something like that to broadcast it onto a screen and then just do a screencast of it, which, isn't a great solution for class-wide. But students can share the files with each other. So if one student builds a game that they really like, they can share that file and you can connect it to an Evernote document and put that link on your class blog. And when students open that file on their device, it will prompt them to open the file in Scratch Junior.
Nice. So there are
you could,
there are possibilities there for creating extra projects.
Exactly. And it's a great way to distribute content to the students. So if your students are capable of clicking on a link, you can then have them set up their own iPads essentially. And basically halfway through first grade, second grade, I start doing stuff like that.
So what about collaboration? Let's say that I wanted to create something where two kids were working together. Is this the type of event where you can have two people or more on one iPad? I mean, maybe I'm not in a one-to-one environment.
Well, oftentimes for the elementary students, Jeff, I find it's better, even if I have the equipment to go one-to-one, to be two students per iPad, because we want the students working with each other. We want them problem solving together. We want them learning to share. We want them learning to take turns. So a high engagement tool environment like programming, like Scratch Junior, is a good match for high challenge teaching. So, before we do a lesson where we're having the kids figure out the spelling words or whatever, we're going to talk to them about taking turns. We're going to talk to them about negotiating whether or not they need help, how to ask for help, how to offer help, how to refuse help. These are all things that we have learned to do to work with each other in today's world. And as teachers, although we can get excited about every student being able to have their iPad, especially with the elementary grades, I think that we often have to make very careful choices so that we're always meeting as many solid pedagogical goals as we can.
I love what you just said there, because today we had a situation where I was teaching coding to the 18-month-olds here in the house. And one of them grabbed the iPad away from the other, which, of course, the effect was lots and lots of crying and screaming in the house. So I guess we have to make sure that we hit that lesson before opening up the Scratch.
It doesn't sound like that changes much over time. The first time I worked with young students in an iPad, I handed a student an iPad and they brought it to their chest and they crossed their arms over it and they turned away from the students nearest to them. And I thought, that's a very interesting phenomenon. That obviously means we should work on that in class to make sure that their natural tendency to be all by themselves on their iPad is undercut by the community and collaboration that we sponsor here.
Sam, are there other apps that you use that are like Scratch Junior? Oh, actually, before you answer that, what is the cost of Scratch Junior? Is that a premium app or is that a free app?
Scratch Junior is a completely free app.
Nice. What other apps would you recommend?
Scratch Junior is what we call an open studio app, which is great, but it does require you to build lessons around it. A leveled apps that complement Scratch Junior include Codable, which is a freemium app. There's a free aspect, but you can also get Codable School, and you can get kind of a teacher dashboard for it and the ability for students to sign in from home. That works really well. The other one that's really nice, leveled app experience, is the Foos, Foos. And Codable is Kodable. The Foos is put out by CodeSpark. It originally came out last year, right around the Hour of Code in December. Students find it very engaging. They have some very cute avatars who are in this quasi three-dimensional world. They just are getting ready to release a couple new levels that go over conditional statements and this kind of thing. Codable gets students through conditional statements, functions, and variables.
Sam, there's clearly a lot of stuff here that people are going to be interested in. Obviously, like you said, go to mypaperlessclassroom.com, which is now a part of the TeacherCast family, to learn more about it. But isn't there a place where people can go to meet you and learn all about coding?
You bet. I'm presenting at a number of conferences in the Bay Area this spring, and I will also be at ISTE talking about teaching literacy skills through programming, and would love to meet people there and look forward to seeing you.
We're here on TeacherCast Podcast, episode number 120, talking to my good friend Sam Patterson all about the great stuff that he's doing at the ISTE Conference and the great stuff that TeacherCast is going to be doing at the ISTE Conference. Now, Sam, this isn't your first ISTE Conference. Why do you keep coming back to it?
I keep coming back to ISTE because it's such a great audience. I love meeting educators who are doing amazing work. I love sharing the work I'm doing, and everybody at ISTE cares a whole lot.
And this year, of course, it's going to be in my hometown of Philadelphia, the great city here in Pennsylvania. And there are a lot of things to do once you get in here. It doesn't matter if you're a science teacher or a math teacher. There are great museums to go to. There's great food to come to. The city is beautiful. You can certainly take a trip towards the Liberty Bell and the Ben Franklin House and all these great things. But most importantly, Sam, people are here for the cheesesteaks. And people are going to be looking to figure out where the best cheesesteaks to go to. Is it Pat's? Is it Geno's? I'll tell you, if you're out there listening and you're looking for a good cheesesteak, my favorite cheesesteak is on 4th and South Street, and it's at Jim's Cheesesteak. Sam, I got to take you there when you come up.
Definitely. I thought you were putting together some sort of cheesesteak themed pub crawl kind of thing. Is that still going to happen?
We are actually trying to put together a place of your favorite Philadelphia eateries that we're going to be putting out here. But that's not why we're talking about ISTE. We are talking all about the great stuff that's going to be happening. We have some accepted proposals coming up, and we have some amazing news. Sam, last year you helped TeacherCast broadcast live from the ISTE convention in Atlanta, and I am thrilled because we're going to be doing the same exact thing this year. We're going to be broadcasting live on Monday and Wednesday from 8 o'clock till 12 in the morning over on teachercast.tv. And we also have a special we're going to be broadcasting on Tuesday morning as well. Sam, I mean, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to when you get here to ISTE?
Well, I'm really looking forward to meeting up with Doug at The Weird Teacher, because he and I are going to be doing a session on high engagement, a puppet's guide to high engagement teaching. Really looking forward to connecting with him and doing that. But more than that, I'm really looking forward to spending some more time with our good friends at the Microsoft booth, because we have had such an amazing time learning about Microsoft and talking to people with Microsoft that they invited us to hang out with them. Is that on Tuesday morning? Which one are we doing that one?
Tuesday morning, we have a big day ahead of us for that. We actually have 2 events that we're going to be planning on Tuesday. Number one, we have a panel discussion actually at 10:45 to 11:45 that I believe a friend of yours is going to be involved with. Sam, I know we had put your name on the panel discussion, but you didn't make the cut.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Wait, what?
Well, you didn't make the cut, I'm sorry to say, but we're doing a panel discussion called Designing Digital Age Learning Experiences with Apple and Google Tools. Essentially, the question that we're going to ask is, can a school district be both Apple and Google qualified? And we have an amazing panel. We have myself is going to be on the panel, and Jenny Graybeck is going to be on the panel, and also from Google Education, Mr. Jamie Cassip. But Sam, I think the big news here that people are going to want to come out to is the moderator of this panel discussion is none other than Waka Patui.
Jeff, I think that's a horrible idea.
No. It's great. People are going to be coming out to see the puppet moderate this big event.
You've seen him at these things, right?
I've seen him.
I mean,
he was a pre-keynote.
He's not a
keynoter.
moderating influence.
No. He's a great... Sam, he's been approved by ISTE. So he's going to be there, and it's going to be fantastic.
Okay, that'll be great. I'm really looking forward to it.
But you're not... You weren't invited, Sam. Only Waka Patui was.
Okay. I don't... Okay, so I can go get a cheesecake during that. Cheesesteak?
Steak. If you go get a cheesecake,
Cheesesteak.
you've gone to the wrong factory. Yes, you have to go
Got
to the
it.
Cheesecake Factory. So that's going to be on Tuesday morning, June 30th from 10:45 to 11:45. And after that, we are going to be headed onto the convention floor to the Microsoft booth, where we're going to be joining the Microsoft education team for not a broadcast, but a talk show. And we're going to be absolutely thrilled to be hosting a Microsoft education talk show live from the Microsoft booth that we're going to be broadcasting out. Now, Sam, the neat part is that's not the only thing that we're going to be doing here. In addition to the panel discussion, we've also been nominated for what's called a Birds of a Feather session, and we're going to be having a Birds of a Feather session on Monday afternoon, and we're going to be talking all about educational podcasting and how you can create a podcast. Sam, you've also got a Birds of a Feather session. What's yours?
Mine is about STEM and robotics in kindergarten through 5th grade. So what we're going to do is we're going to fly robots and drones into your podcasting Birds of a Feather session, and we're going to disrupt all of that.
So, Sam, there's certainly plenty of things for people to be doing this year at ISTE, and, we're going to be talking a lot more about this on the TeacherCast show and writing the blog posts about it. And so if you have not gotten a chance to head over to the ISTE Conference.org site to find out all that is going on over at ISTE, I certainly would encourage you to. Sam, what are some of the things that you learned last year that you might be able to present to people as, things to look out for, maybe things to pack or things to do before the events?
First thing to do before the event, Jeff, is take everything off of your devices.
Good advice.
Programs you're not going to use at the conference, take them off. Put them back on later. Empty all of your storage, right? Set up your backup batteries and be ready to roll with as few devices as possible. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that when they go to conferences and they say, OMG, there's no Wi-Fi, that they are walking in with like 5 active Wi-Fi address requests. There's one on their watch, there's one on their phone, there's one on their iPad, there's one on their Android, there's one on their laptop. If you consolidate, you turn some Wi-Fi off, you put less demands on the entire system, you'll actually be able to get your Wi-Fi better. So pare down your device storage, empty out all your photos, and minimize your number of devices.
And do you really need to walk in with all those devices? I mean, look, I'm the guilty one that's walking in with the iPhone and the iPad and 2 laptops. Of course, I'm coming in to broadcast with everything. Do you need to bring all that stuff on your back? I mean, doesn't that get heavy after a while?
It does get heavy. I always struggle with, can I carry the weight around versus won't it be better to learn with the tool that I need? But honestly, when I do these conferences, I try to roll as light as I can. I do almost everything I can with my phone. I'll bring a couple extra batteries, but then I'll bring paper and pencil.
So if you are out there and you're planning to come to the ISTE conference, I urge you to check out the Tech Educator podcast the week before. This is going to be on June 21st. We're going to be doing a live ISTE what to do, how to get. We've done these the last 2 years going into ISTE in Atlanta and ISTE into San Antonio, and it's one of our favorite shows that we do because we really get a chance to talk a little bit about how to prepare, what to pack, what to do, what sessions to do, and we've got some pretty cool guests. If you are going to be going to ISTE and you're interested in checking this out, we'll be doing our ISTE show live on June 21st over at teachercast.tv at 7 o'clock night. But Sam, that's not all. What's one more thing that we can do to prepare for ISTE?
Well, I was just thinking, Jeff, that I always like to look ahead at what's going to be there, register for whatever workshops I want. What if that week before ISTE, we presented people with 2 or 3 different generic plans that said, if you are like a K-5 STEM teacher, here's a sequence of things you might go to and you wouldn't want to miss. If you are a high school English teacher, here's a sequence of things you want to go to and things you wouldn't want to miss. If you're an administrator, and just and I think with the cast of the Tech Educator podcast, we ought to be able to pull this off, talk about kind of what seem to be some of the best ones so far, which ones are going to be the ones worth standing in line for, because I don't know if you noticed last year, Jeff, many of the popular sessions filled quick and had lines early.
I didn't realize that because my rooms were wide open, Sam.
You mean your sessions?
Yes,
Really?
yes.
Plenty of spots to sit?
Yeah,
No.
plenty, yes. Wasn't room, I didn't have any of those problems of people not being able to get in.
My puppet workshop was the same way. Lots, you could come at any time, lots of space. But the popular workshops, Jeff, fill up quickly, I'm told. And you kind of have to go there early. So, when you're looking at this, where you want to go, be thinking about the fact that you might not be able to go to sessions 1, 2, and 3. You might just go to 1 and 3 and spend session 2 sitting in place for session 3.
I understand what you're saying. And that's why if you can't get into the popular sessions, on Tuesday morning we have a panel discussion from 10:45 to 11:45 all about Apple and Google. So certainly we would invite you to check that out. And certainly on Tuesday afternoon, go over to the Microsoft booth where we're going to be hosting a live TV broadcast featuring all of Microsoft Education. There's, of course, several things that you can do over on TeacherCast if you really are interested in getting a part of ISTE. If you go to teachercast.net and under blogs, you type over the ISTE, you can actually see all of our conference presentations and broadcasts from last year. We did some great interviews with people like Vicki Davis and Ed Webb and Richard Burns stop by. We had Angela Myers and Todd Nessaloni show up, and we had some really great guests. We are looking forward to doing it again this year. And so if you are interested in being on the show, certainly reach out. You can find us at TeacherCast or leave us a voicemail over at teachercast.net/voicemail. We'd be happy to get you on the show to help learn how you're sharing your passions with your students. Sam, there's a lot of great stuff happening here, but it is time for us to wrap up the show. Next week, we're going to be back live on the Tech Educator podcast to talk all about educational podcasting. Did you know that we started a brand new educational podcasting network?
That's amazing.
We are starting a brand new network filled with amazing shows. I think we're launching right now with about 7 to 10 shows over at edupodcastingnetwork.com. And it's a little network set up by one of our co-hosts, Chris Nessie, over at the House of EdTech podcast, and it has some great shows such as the House of EdTech and Instructional Tech Talk with Jeff Herb and John Samuelson. And this show is going to be on there. And so with our other shows, the Tech Educator podcast and Educational Podcasting Today. So we're going to be talking all about that next week on the Tech Educator podcast. Sam, I want to say thank you so much for showing up today and talking to us about Scratch Junior and coding. Where can we find out more information about the great stuff that you're doing?
You can find out more information about the great stuff I'm doing at mypaperlessclassroom.com. It's new home inside of the TeacherCast network.
Excellent. And of course, you can reach out to TeacherCast each and every week. Again, find us on Twitter at TeacherCast, and we urge you, go over to teachercast.net/iTunes or teachercast.net/YouTube. The best way to spread this show around is to give us some ratings and reviews on our channels. It is the best way to absolutely help and support our channel. And you know what? It takes 30 seconds and doesn't cost you anything. So we want to say thank you to everybody who has taken the time to go do that. On behalf of everybody here on the TeacherCast Educational Network, my name is Jeff Bradbury. Till next time, keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.